Okay, this being almost 20 minutes of 7, I guess we call the meeting to order at 6:40. Who would like to do the roll call? Rita?
Chair Bottenberg.
Present.
Commissioner Gunno.
Present.
Commissioner Nishioka.
Present.
Commissioner Heilman.
Present.
Commissioner Banak.
Present.
Commissioner Varnes.
Present.
And Commissioner Mir is absent.
Do we have a flag? We do. Who would like to lead us in the pledge? Stan?
Could you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
Go ahead.
I'll
Jody.
move.
Raise your hand, maybe?
Jody.
Oh, okay.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, the agenda is approved as presented here. The minutes of the March 9th meeting, it seems like forever ago. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
Also move.
Who's that?
Commissioner Howell and Mark.
And do we have a second?
I second it.
Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, the minutes of March 9th meeting have been accepted as distributed. Okay. Do we have any public comment?
Chair Bottenberg, I do not see any members of the public either online or in attendance this evening.
Okay, there being none, we'll proceed with the agenda. New business, the 2023-24 grant application review, mental wellness. Okay. Who's working the screen for show and tell? Okay. I guess we can move to the next page. We have a meeting on June 29th for cultural inclusion, domestic violence, and senior. And then the 13th for basic needs, and then probably a few in between before September 14th to come to the totals that we're allowed to have and our additional asks. So tonight we'll start with mental wellness. There's 17 applications. That compares to 19 2 years ago. 3 are new to us this year, having not received grant 2 years ago. And that includes the Bridge of Promise, Influence the Choice, and the other Influence the Choice. Interestingly, that looking at 2 years ago in mental wellness, we also had one from the YMCA, the One Love Foundation, and 2 from Encompass. Just let me say that 17 mental wellness grants, and you read about what good things that are being provided by our charities, it's phenomenal. We also notice that there's of course, focus on youth mental wellness. And we believe that we will see mental wellness show up in other categories along the way, such as with domestic violence, cultural inclusion, seniors, and of course, basic needs. What we have tonight is preliminary. It's up for discussion. A couple of you served with the mental wellness in the past, and you may have insight that we haven't considered here. And Reader also is available to provide more information as we need it.
Chair,
Yes,
can I ask who's on the subcommittee for mental wellness?
Rich and me. Commissioner Banac. Okay, and you're leading basic needs, and you have,
I don't know who else is on basic.
you have
Oh,
Hannah, and you have, I think you have.
Commissioner Varnes.
Yes. Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
right. Let me start with the Youth Eastside Service Cross Path. That is the largest ask, and that's the youth mental wellness. And this was first brought up in 2019. Was it by a special grant through City Council? So it was over and above what we were doing at the during the 2-year grant biennial process there. And what we have is a mental health worker sitting at CrossPath, has opportunity for drop-ins, opportunity to meet with the youth and with their caretakers and parents, and provides phenomenal information and referral, and also counseling. In 2020, we gave a grant of $80,781. This one is a request of $92,518. This is a 1 FTE. They're working with ages 12 and up. And they had 202 residents in 2021, and 2023 has that same number. The units are based on a assessment and referral and counseling. And those are hours, 824 hours for both 2021 and the projected 2023. You see the high points of the grant request in front of you. If there's no comment or discussion, we can move to the second one. Rich, you can pop in when you want to.
Yeah, I don't have the material with me.
Okay.
Joyce, this is Jody. Well, it's loud. Ken, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you repeat what was the last year's proposal amount again? Was
The dollar amount in 2020?
Yeah.
80,781.
And then this year they're asking for a full-time to fund the full, it'll fully fund a FTE, 1 FTE counselor.
As it was before, it was a 1 FTE.
And just to repeat, so they're not charging any fees for the screenings or assessments. Will they be charging for treatment?
If you want to explain, Reader, if they take on a person that they are not referring to Youth Eastside Service or Friends of Youth?
As Chair Bottenberg said, one of the service units is the information referral piece, and that's a free. So first of all, the Counsellors Act is exclusively just for Sammamish residents, and there's also a free service whereby residents can call CrossPath. They will get in with him within a day, and then he will do a very detailed assessment and referral. And so what that means is it's an intake form, and then he makes sure that he gives a hand. If they don't have the capacity to see that person, he will make sure that he will get that resident connected to a counsellor that has availability and that also accepts their insurance as well. So it's like a real soft handover. As far as his counselling work goes, just reading the application. So the majority of their clients, and this is just within YES, are low income, funded through Medicaid. I know they take private insurance as well. I'm just looking through very quickly as to whether. So when families have a source of coverage through insurance or economic ability to pay, the project will optimize all billable sources. For those with an inability to pay or pay full fee, this project will provide free or low cost mental health and substance use treatment. So that's from their application. And then also those families that are uninsured or medical benefits that do not include mental health coverage, they would also serve them.
Thank you.
And also very quickly, Chair Nishioka, Commissioner Nishioka, the project will also serve youth who seek services on their own and cannot pay for services. And so that's anyone 13 and older. Yeah.
And they work through both the Lake Washington and the Issaquah school districts. And they make referrals to Youth Eastside Services and Friends of Youth. And their measurements are based on 1 hour counseling sessions. And their assessments and referrals is 135 in both the past year and the projected year. No other questions? I like the benefit of seeing each other as compared to, okay, is anybody talking? Okay, let's move to the next one. Youth Eastside Services for Children and Youth. Okay. I don't think I need to read it to you here. This is within the Lake Washington School District. The Youth Eastside Services is the lead referral agency for students. It's considered to be the open access model with the schools to meet youth wherever they are. Let's see, the grant to them in 2020 was $29,000. They're asking for $31,900, and we're proposing or recommending $31,900. They had 88 residents in 2021 and projected for 2023. Their units of services are counseling for youth and or their family. And in 2021, it was 1,233, and they're projecting 1,233. It's one-on-one counseling. They serve ages 8 to 22, and primarily to improve the social, emotional, and well-being through counseling. They have no other funding sources listed on their revenue. However, they also are asking other communities for funds, and that includes Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, and of course, us. Their measurement is to have reduction, and the children have reduced behavioral issues. They're coping better. They meet treatment goals, and the reduction of alcohol. Okay. And 75% will improve their social, emotional, and well-being by gaining skills and emotional regulation. What we're learning through most of these mental wellness applications is the use of surveys. Some surveys that have been used for years and some that are more one-on-one quarterly exit surveys and group surveys to see how people are doing compared to how they tested or were met at the very beginning.
Joyce, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first two that we're allocating most of the money on are direct help services to directly help
Yeah,
work
this
with.
is hands-on counseling.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
I have a question. Me, the big picture in the back.
There you are. You popped in.
um, is the increase, is it due to, one of the things I'm seeing in the other applications is like staffing costs are higher. It's not necessarily that the program's expanding, it's just that they're having to pay more to keep their staff. Is this increase due to that, or are they expecting a higher need, or both?
Well, in this case, I believe it's because in order to retain staff, they have to pay better.
Mm-hmm.
And this has
Yeah.
been true in most of these
Mm-hmm.
proposals.
Chair Bob, I can also just say that it's also due, they're all saying this increase is due to inflation and the rising cost of hiring licensed certified mental health staff in our region.
Okay.
And I believe CrossPath was the same thing. That was their increase.
That's correct, yeah.
It just costs more to hire the therapists and keep them.
The youth study in 2021 showed that 35% of 10th graders had been feeling sad in 2+ weeks in the past month. And of 12th graders, 43%. That youth study, just as an aside here, was part of a presentation by the Alliance of Eastside Agencies last month. And it spoke to the fact that October is the time that the surveys are done every 2 years. And if you look at 2019 was the last one, 2021 was the more current. And of course the numbers are up. I just feel kind of like, wouldn't the survey have been better when the kids were in school for a few months before needing to answer the survey? But I'm not the survey. And they have 6.5 full-time employees. And they have a staff ratio for people of color between 25 and 50%. Are there any other questions on this Youth Eastside Service proposal? Rita, is there anything you want to add? No. Okay.
And we did confirm that they are within the school for Lake Washington, correct?
That's correct, yes. So that they're serving all the middle and high schools within Lake Washington, yeah.
Okay, next. Friends of Youth. Okay. Mental health and substance use disorder counseling. Okay, in 2020, we made a grant of, recommended a grant of 10,000. They're asking for 20,000. The resident count 2019 was 63. The projected for 2023 is 98. Their units of service are counseling orders, let's say hours, of 968 and 980 for the coming year. They service in 2 cities, Issaquah and Sammamish. They have 22.5 FTEs. They serve children between ages of 3 and 24, and they are projecting a need for 1 additional counselor. We are recommending 15,000 and a carryover if we can do an additional grant of 5,000 to bring it to that $20,000 request. Is there any questions? Discussion?
Can you explain the carryover of 5,000?
If you remember the last time around, we needed to make sure that we didn't overspend what was based, what is it, $440,000 overall?
That's correct.
That we have in a budget from City Council to meet. And while they asked for 20, we gave them 10 before, we split the difference at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're allowed to do an additional ask, which we have done for the last 2 biennial periods, it would be nice to give them the full 20,000.
Okay. So the additional is what we want, what we will ask for, but if we don't
Yeah,
get it,
in that
we'll-
other column.
Got it.
Yeah. And remember, everything that's being said today is preliminary. I mean, we'll somehow or other get to that 440 in one column before we add another 440 in the second column. Okay. I'm going to ask you a hard question, Rita. Crisis this and crisis that, the 211 versus the information referral. I think it's kind of confusing for even to read the proposals. The 211 is the one we're going to be looking at next. And this one, let's see now, formerly called the Crisis Clinic. Everybody seemed to know where 211 is. You could call that number any place in the country and get help wherever you need it. It's phenomenal that way. And it's handled, there's one handled locally here in Seattle, well, actually Renton. The information and referral calls were 207 in the 2019, and in 211 calls in the 2023 projected. There were 159 individuals, both in the past and the upcoming year projected. The provider of information and preventative help, 21% of it was for the rent assistance, 18% was for vaccination information. They have 30.2 FTEs. Kind of interesting on the demographics for 2021. 99% were low income, 63% were people of color, 28% were homeless, 45% were disabled, 61% were with children, of which 70% were single parents. They do handle complex services such as civil and legal referrals, eviction prevention, and applications for basic assistance such as food, clothing, transportation, and all. They have quite a revenue stream, government, and is over 14%. They help with low-cost housing information, shelters, as I said, rent and COVID. And we are recommending.
Can I just, we're on crisis.
The 211, fourth one down.
We're on the
Crisis
yeah.
Clinic.
Can you put the screen, move the screen on the. Thank you. I got a little confused. Thanks.
That's helpful.
Chair,
Thank you. Yep.
is there a breakdown of what cities are served or were served in those numbers?
This is East County.
East King County,
Yeah.
Sammamish, Redmond.
Auburn, Bellevue, Burien, Covington, Des Moines, Federal Way, Issaquah.
So they just linked everything together versus breaking them
For the
out,
east
or-
side, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to kind of say, I had never heard of the 211 until I started working here. And it's like, it just seemed like a very good service that, you know, when you meet somebody in need, what can you do to help them? And just, this is a, you know, first step there. So this is one reason I was very enthusiastic for supporting it.
Can I ask how much we funded in the previous cycle?
Okay. $4,080 in 2020. They were asking for 6,334. And I think we were in that, let's round it off to 6,000. And they had 2,949 residents served, and they're projecting 3,244. This is based on phone calls. And the same in units because they're figuring one person, one call. They do cover 16 cities in this particular grant process. And it's more for an emotional crisis as compared to the, what do you want to call it, emergency crisis. So if I wanted to find out how I could find help for my mother in Kansas, I can call 211 and I'll be connected to the source there to provide that information on where else I could call. And let's see, their measurements here.
I'm familiar with 211 as well. They do referrals, like you said, for everything. So it's a great program for sure.
And you can figure why they have 48.53 FTEs to handle the volume that they have. So our recommendation at this time is for $6,000. Any other discussion, questions? Okay, moving along to Athletes for Kids. Okay, this is youth mentoring. High school, you can read there, high school athletes with children who have disabilities or special needs. They're asking for 10,000. We're recommending 5,000. And in 2020, our grant to them was for 4,744. And Jody, you'd be interested to know that they're also going down to bowling as a athlete. They had 210 residents this past year. They're projecting 221 for our upcoming year. And their hours, their units, a little over 2,800 hours last year, projecting just about 3,100 hours for 2023. They have 3.7 FTEs. They have 100 volunteers. And people of color of the, let's see now, the buddies, who are the children helped, 38%, and of the mentors, that's 28%.
Chair?
Yep.
The last time we gave them or awarded a grant,
4744.
yeah, didn't we ask for them to look into assistance with scholastics versus everything being geared toward athleticism?
I don't know what came of that.
That's correct, Commissioner Gunnar, we did. And in their application, they're still primarily focused on athletes. However, there is a line, and I will quickly bring that up for you. So Athletes for Kids has also moved away from requiring athletes to play a sport at their high school. We recognize that athletes can participate in a variety of athletic endeavors, not just limited to traditional high school sports. For example, we now have an athlete who is a cricket player and an athlete who is a competitive bowler. And they also mentioned that whilst athletic people can be they're not allowed to be mentors, they're able to help in events.
I know this was one I struggled with a great deal, was because it seemed very much on the athletes, and my concern were that some of the students they were helping might have problems relating to, an athlete, say perhaps other than somebody who was maybe part of a science club or part of the band. So I think that was kind of why we came with the compromise.
I wonder, was there any discussion in their application or what you know of them of the benefit for the mentors as well? Is that part of the focus for their
Youth development,
awareness?
mentoring experience, and getting involved in the community, helping, and just being there as a friend. Their mission has been all along an athlete, so changing their mission, and they've been in existence for several years. I think they're looking to expand into other cities. They're already in Bellevue.
Didn't they go through recent transition in leadership as well?
So that was the previous cycle. They have a new executive director.
So yes. They do have a new.
Yeah, it's Marnie. Yeah.
And is the new executive director someone who's been involved with the organization
Yes.
before?
She was the second in charge.
Ah, got it.
And so, Commissioner Gunnar, I'm just reading another part of the application. While only athletes can be mentors in the program, Anyone in the high school is welcome to volunteer with the organization at monthly mentor and buddy events.
But we don't know how many non-athletes are volunteering. So.
I know that's not a service unit of theirs, no.
100 count.
We've had concerns about this particular issue that you raised around limiting it to athletes, and how, you know, lots of kids would be great mentors, and it shouldn't be limited to athletes, and it's a little elitist. So it sounds like they're trying to address it, but I don't really think they've really addressed it in any substantive way. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing good work for the community in the way that they do it. I have other concerns that I have voiced in past years about their model. And since some of you haven't been here before, I'm going to voice them again. And I'm wondering if I didn't read the proposal, so I'm wondering if they addressed it, because I think we might have asked them this question before. And that is that when they match them, the folks that they place with the mentors could potentially have some pretty serious or be special needs that need, you know, someone who mentors them should be trained. And they don't offer they do offer some training, but not any of any substance. And I had personal experience where my son was a mentor and driving, and he had his mentee in the car, and the mentee was acting out while he was driving, and it was not a safe situation. And he wasn't trained as a 17-year-old boy, 16-year-old boy, to be able to manage that. Like, he didn't know what to do. And then there were multiple situations in that relationship. So anyway, there are some concerns that I have, and I'm not sure if they've addressed that. I'm wondering if they've addressed that in the proposal.
One of their service units is training workshops, and this is for the mentors. And in 2021, there were 833 hours in training and development, and they're projecting 900 hours for the Sammamish mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that they cover more than just a background check. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's really for the safety of not just the mentors, but the kids themselves, and making sure that, you know, I mean, my kid was wanting to do good. He just wasn't really fully prepared for a kid who had high needs. I think if you have a kid who doesn't have high needs, could work really well. But this kid apparently had been passed around to multiple mentors that didn't work well. And so now he was on his third or fourth mentor over the course of a couple of years. So they already had knowledge that he was difficult, and they still didn't do anything about it. So that was my concern. But that might be just one incident.
I can match you. My grandson has had three.
Had three?
And different mentors. And it was a decision of the family to try somebody new.
Yeah.
Maybe it brings up the issue of how do they do their screening, you know, who would be a good mentee versus who may need some additional assistance beyond just a mentorship.
Right. And at the time, the people who were running the program and doing the matching didn't have any professional degrees in special needs. So they couldn't really assess in a professional way the needs. I don't know if they've changed that in their staffing or not.
And that's why we're not recommending what they asked for. 2 years before our grant of 4,744, we didn't make a grant. So we're just sort of matching what we did last year here. Any further questions, discussion? Okay, moving right along. Yummy. All right. Mental health education, peer-led. Okay, they asked for 8,000, and in 2020, our grant was for 4,000. This is 4,000 per year, as you can Likely no. And we this year are recommending 5,000, not the 8,000 they asked for. 297 Sammamish residents last year, projecting 350 this next year. And let's see now. Okay. Their outcome measures, I think, are kind of interesting. It's one-on-one and exit interviews and quarterly gatherings. So we're back to surveys and some in-person. Support group session, 200 last year, projected 240 next year. Training group sessions, 84 last year, predicting 85 next year. So this is education and support. It looks like the Lake Washington School District is pretty much covered, as well as Shoreline and and Kenmore. The other ones are Lake Washington area. They have a varied revenue sources as well. No county or state grants. Okay. Any questions?
Chair.
Yep.
The last time Nashina and I reviewed the mental health, and if I remember correctly, and don't quote me right now, but I think both of the NAMI requests were not able to meet their service units.
And the schools weren't in session either. And most of this is in schools.
But there was one of them that was for families outside of the school district or outside of the school system.
Yeah, the youth mental health one, and this one is the mental health education and support. So the support to teachers too.
So do we know what numbers they provided? I didn't hear.
In 2019 and 2021.
In 2021.
Okay, let's see.
Because that would be a school year, right?
Yeah. Okay, support group. These are support group and group sessions for 219 and 240 projected in 21. In training workshops, group sessions, and these are sessions that seem to average 8-week training, can be between 4 and 64 hours. And they had 84 in last year and projecting 85 for this next year. And they also have a outcome category called information referral, which is a one-on-one session. It can be walk-in, phone, call, or web inquiry. And they had 13 in 2019 and project 25 in 2021.
Rita, was this the one we had discussed extensively, that they just have a continually miss their metrics, or it's very hit and miss?
So Commissioner Benak, that's, I believe, for the next one, the NAMI Youth Mental Health, where they were going into schools and doing trainings. Yeah.
But this is not the one that they.
That's correct.
That
Yeah.
problem. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to Crisis Connection Crisis Line.
We didn't do the second NAM yet.
Oh yeah, okay. My list is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 order, so I have to go to 7 order. Thank you. Okay, youth mental health. Okay, this one we had Rita talk to them for some better interpretation of what and why, and particularly for the youth mental health, and that was that they had, in addition to the ending the silence presentation, you remember they were doing that in the past, but for the 2021-22 year, they also had Eastside Youth Ambassador Program. They started in September 2021 to get groups of students at every middle, high school and high school on the East Side. And they have volunteers who go into that. They also have a teacher and staff support within Lake Washington District. And this is where they're providing programs for counselors and teachers. And that they asked for education in implementing self-care and coping skills. And they admit here this needs more attention and power, and of course, some funding. We'd love to deliver youth mental health first aid to all staff to train them to be a trusted adult who knows what to do. I think our experience here is when you hold a mental health first aid class, even if it's free, you're not getting a full class registering to take the class. And then they also have a peer-to-peer mental health first aid where they're working with adults now. And they also have a youth mental health first aid for working with students. Peer-to-peer is a series that teaches students these same skills. Access for risk of suicide or harm, listening non-judgmentally, give reassurance and information, encourage appropriate professional help, encourage self-help and other support strategies or resources. And they are working to deliver a coping skill educational program for students. And here's another one that says the biggest cost we have to expand these programs is certifying trainers for the mental health first aid series and for the licensing fees.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, one of my concerns on what is that it was a very indirect help. So it wasn't directly helping the people who needed it. It was more, well, helping some people who might be able to do some help. So that's that was my big concern on this one is.
We gave no grant in 2020. They're asking for 5,000 here. We are recommending 2,500 and a carryover additional ask if possible of another 2,500. We have great faith they're going to do great stuff, I guess. I think Rita has a better feeling as to do they have their act together?
I hate being put on the spot like that because this is you as a commission. You know, you guys need to not be tainted by, look, I think, I did ask on your behalf, Chair Bottenberg and Commissioner Banak, about how much buy-in do schools actually have. That these look really good on paper, but we know that like schools are particularly that they've only got so much space in, like they don't have hours on end. That they've got a very tight schedule, and unless you have buy-in from a school district, it's hard to you can say you're going to get into schools, but unless you have an agreement. It's hard to get into schools. And I know the executive director did reply back, and I did forward that on to you. And it sounds like they're kind of more having a more of a emphasis on the youth ambassador program. So as opposed to before they wanted to get into schools and do the suicide prevention training, they've now kind of slightly morphed that to a more of an indirect sort of services. Commissioner Banak was implying.
They report that they have 3.5 FTA staff and 65 full-time equivalency volunteers. The staff is in that 51 to 75% as being people of color. Any other questions?
Can you speak a little, do they go in and describe a little bit more about the Youth Ambassador Program?
Sure. Let's get to the main part of it here. Okay, let's speak to their basic overview here. The Youth Mental Health Program centers youth voices to provide robust services to East King County schools and communities. We partner closely with family educators and other organizations serving youth to share mental health education through presentations and in-depth classes. The recent installation of our Youth Ambassadors Program has successfully engaged students and built mental health advocates to inspire and support peers within classrooms. And so the question, what more specifically hearing? What they're saying is with pandemic-induced isolation from peers and interruption in their routines, youth are in a mental health crisis. And it goes on to say the Center for Disease Control data shows that in 2021, 37% of high school students shared that they experienced poor mental health, and 44% reported they have consistently felt sad or hopeless. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among people 10 to 14 and has been increasing every year since 2017. In King County alone, youth ages 14 to 17 have the highest rate for emergency room visits for suicidal ideation and suspected attempts. And this is from the Public Health of Seattle King County. And you're asking also about the specific provided services being provided. NAMI utilizes signature programs such as Ending the Silence in Our Own Voices to share detailed presentations concerning mental health diagnoses, symptoms, and suicidality. Our signature programming will further expand to introduce support groups to Eastside schools in 2023 under the name of Empowerment Groups.
Are they in the Lake Washington schools currently?
Say again?
Are they in the Lake Washington schools currently?
Yes.
Or they are.
Yes.
I don't think so.
You don't think?
I
Okay.
think the reason why they didn't get a grant last time is because they did not have an agreement with the schools. And I think they're looking to get an agreement next year.
So if I might just quickly add, so yes, they don't, and that was the thing, they don't have an agreement. What they have said is that they have that youth ambassador program, which they're saying they have a number of Sammamish students participate in that. So again, I think they're not, whereas before they were saying they wanted to do presentations within the schools. Now this is definitely kind of like changed to more the youth ambassador program. So to your point, Commissioner Varnes, are they officially in schools? No, they're not. However, they are saying that they have a youth program where they have ambassadors from the high schools that attend.
May I ask, do we have a description of how that program works? How you volunteer for that program, how they're trained, and what they do?
The proposal says that they have 35 students and then they train them or give them education so that they will do campaigns in their schools and raise awareness. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it looks like they have and create conversations in their homes and recruit. They want to recruit more. So it sounds like they're really relying on the students to talk in their families, but also maybe do some posters or whatever the kids come up with in their schools. But I agree that with a point that Rita kind of alluded to, which is that there's not a whole lot of time for them to do that in the schools because they're all in classes, and if the school isn't sanctioning it, they have to do that on their own time and organizing. So
I don't want to speak a second time before somebody else has a chance, but
like I said, my big concern on this is it was just very fuzzy on their deliverables. I mean, lots of good intentions, but actual deliverables and how you're making a difference was unclear to me. I mean, so, and it sounded like they were having some problems with their metrics, even by their own, meeting their own metrics, so.
Chair?
Yep.
I was curious as to how they got the 35 youth involved in the program and what the process is with NAMI to make sure that the program gets promoted in the schools. It's a little sketchy, that's all. It's not well defined in my view.
They asked for 5 and we're suggesting 2,500. But potentially a carryover of 2,500.
I think the last time we
But
gave
the numbers that
nothing.
they gave us were 2019.
What did we
They
give
were
them?
not 2021.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Now I go back to my number 8 here. Crisis Connections Crisis Line. Okay, this is a 24-hour number. They also receive phone calls through the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Everything is confidential and free. It's intervention, information, referral, and support in emotional crises. In our, they're in 9 counties in 2021, and they had 175,914 calls. And their measurement is phone calls. We gave them $3,000 in 2020. They're asking for $4,160. We're recommending $4,160. They had 157. Let me see. I've got a couple numbers here that I need to check. Residential count for Sammamish, 2,949 last year, 3,244 this year, upcoming year. And those are phone calls. Now there's a caveat to that. There's a good number of people that they don't know where they're calling from, and it's proportionally assigned to each of the cities by proportion of theirs to the whole. So we don't really know what the true count is. That same number is their service unit phone call. The incoming phone call to the 24-hour crisis line or to the professional line, which is answered by a crisis supervisor. Then it says here, the unknown anonymous calls, chats, and texts will be divided proportionally across cities based on known percentages of total call volume. This is another one. I'd like to have that organization funded just because I want that available to me when I need it.
Chair,
Yes.
I agree with your subcommittee. This is great funding, especially with the suicide prevention line
Yes.
that they handle. I've had individuals that I've known personally who have called the suicide prevention line and gotten help. And, you know, it's a cheap price to save one life. So
Their total full-time equivalent staff is 48.53.
They were direct intervention. That was what kind of really appealed to me, was that they're directly helping people who are in crisis, and they're a place to go that if somebody needs help. So
It's interesting on their services here too. In 2021, 70% of their calls were people below the poverty line, 31% without a treatment provider, 48% who were disabled, 16% homeless, 8% veteran, 26% people of color, 11% LGBTQ, 37% of the calls are problem solving. They also answer after our calls for Consejo CIMA, Seattle Indian Health, and the Asian Counseling and Referral. So we are.
I support this one at this level. I think it, like you said, it's a lot we got a little bang from their buck on this one, I think.
Shall we move on? Okay. Friends of Youth Healthy Start Home Visiting Program. This is for young families. And let me see what my numbers here are. All I have here is serves young families. And it's free for the young families. Their individual counts for Sammamish, 18 last year, 18 projected. Home visits are our visits, and they're all home visits. They're no in-office things. 60 last year, projected 60. We gave them $2,000 in 2020. They're asking for 4. We're splitting the difference and recommending 3. They have 6.3 full-time equivalencies. And they have their revenue shows a large amount from county and state governments. It's about $420,000 that comes to the county and state of their $514,000 budget last year. And
I know what came out to me was that there just wasn't a large impact on Sammamish. You know, you just had the 18 and, you know, they seem to do really, really good work, but it was not something that necessarily Sammamish was getting a lot of advantage of.
It's 18 individuals.
Right.
And Chair or Councilman, sorry, Commissioner.
Yep.
If you could clarify, so young families, are these families with newborns? Are
Yes.
they doing education? So maybe just kind of clarifying what young families are.
21 and over.
So focused on
Newborns.
newborns. Okay.
Yeah. The measurements kind of speak to it here.
Under 5.
33% will breastfeed any amount at 6 months. That's one of their measurements. And 15% of the caregivers will show greater positive interaction. They too have surveys and one-on-one interviews on that. And between 51 and 75% of their staff are people of color.
I've seen programs, evaluations of home visit programs in general, and they're very effective, but they take a lot of time. So you don't serve that many people like you do with a crisis line. But they're more deep, they're, you know, relational, they're in the home visiting. So anyway, and I would look at one of the things that we considered in the past is, as a regional player, we, you know, like the crisis line, we only give 4,000, but the other cities are giving 4, and all of us pooled together is creating that resource. So I'm not sure if that analysis is for this program. I'm trying to look through. It looks like they've requested from Issaquah, Sammamish, really only Issaquah and Sammamish.
That's the 2, yeah.
So, but something to consider.
And I may have missed that. So they mentioned number of clients that they served, but are these repeating visits? Is it ongoing relationship or?
Visiting hours of those 18 people was 60 hours.
60 hours, okay.
Chair?
Yep.
Did they not request any funding from Redmond?
It doesn't look like it.
They report having 21 residents from Redmond last year and projected. That's versus our 18 and 18.
Chair.
But they have no ask showing
Sorry.
on their revenue page here.
Yeah, I don't have a breakdown of who they requested funding from.
Yeah, so it's only Issaquah and Sammamish.
This is another one like Jody's commissioner mentioned about the regional good. You never know how many people could use this, but don't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I
We
understand.
do have a low-income housing up there in the Kalani area, especially.
I understand that, but I also understand if it's for the regional good, it seems like they would reach out to the region versus just 2 cities.
You're right.
Can I ask a
Maybe
question,
they'll go
Chair?
for 4,000 since they didn't, right?
Friends of Youth have a large presence in Issaquah, that's why. So they're very Issaquah, Sammamish focused as opposed to Kirkland and Bellevue. And
They got the landing up there for teenagers up through 25.
I don't think it's that much money. So I'm feeling
I just find it unusual.
that they didn't ask Redmond. Yeah, I'm not sure why that is. That'd be curious to ask them.
Their income sources are in kind is a huge number.
This is preliminary, so
Yeah, this is just getting it on the table.
thank you.
I think the feeling was that they seemed to do some good work. It was not necessarily to the advantage. And I think that's where we kind of just split the difference. So.
Okay, anything else?
I guess I would just speak in favor of where we have opportunities to help parents early in their responsibilities to help some of the later youth issues to be less. So I'm appreciative that we do have some newborn, infant, new parent services.
True.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
How do families get referred to this program?
Okay, we have that answer over here. How do clients hear about the services? Word of mouth, parent groups, other support groups throughout the year. In Bellevue, Bridget Promise partners with the Bellevue School District, even though we didn't see a number in that column. I think you would be able to speak to that.
Yeah, I've not been aware of, but yeah, glad to know that.
Another good secret. Yeah. They attend the IEP meetings at Bellevue. A lot of Bellevue were mentioned in here.
Chair,
They have,
sorry, Chair Blomberg, I think you have the skip to Bridge of Promise. Are we done with the Friends of Youth Healthy Start program?
no, I think we're still there.
Oh, okay. So I think you may be referring to the Bridge of Promise.
Actually, I have moved over to the wrong one. Thanks for catching that. I was over in the bridge here. Sorry.
So we're at Friends of Youth Healthy Start Home Visiting Program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Pay attention to what I'm looking at. I'm announcing that my reading glasses are at Costco getting the lenses replaced because they cracked in their frames and it's being replaced free. And I'm not seeing well. You want to move to Bridge? Okay. Bridge of Promise. All right, this is an academy for disabled. Is that the disabled one? No. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, we did have an application from them in 2000 that I see. They asked for 7,500. We're recommending 2,500 with a potential additional 2,500. This is where there's a low count, but maybe a bigger need that anybody knows. They had 6 residents in 2021, projecting 10 for next year. Their academy hours, those who are attending their academy, which is 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Not that everybody goes that amount of time. It's in 5 cities. 1,420 hours from those 6 individuals last year, and projecting the 10 individuals will have 2,880 hours in the academy. Their ratio is 2 staff to each 1 client. They have 20 FTEs. And where else are they? Okay. It's called adult daycare, but they learn a lot, as you can tell from the, doesn't say there, but okay. Let me find it. Okay, so provides life skills, therapeutic classes, online engagement, community participation, and opportunities for adults 21 plus, the adults, Their goal is to integrate their members into their home communities while offering a variety of therapeutic activities that historically have not been available to this population. And these are these young adults who have aged out of the education system, have limited or no employment opportunities, and require full-time supported care in home or in a facility. There are over 20,000 individuals with these developmental disabilities in Washington State who are eligible for services through the Department of Social and Health Services and the Developmental Disabilities Administration. In King County alone, there are 6,019 adults who are eligible for services. And we see that we had 6 of our residents, 10 projected. Okay. They say that 19.5% of people with disabilities have incomes below 100% of poverty level and 43% below 200% of poverty level. They're underemployed and living with family or aging parents. Many of our clients require 24-hour support due to a medically fragile diagnosis, behavior support, or personal care requirements. This is a historically underserved population. Consider this also a regional good. What was it? Didn't we have $790 per person as the $750? And then like I said, in 2021, there was no grant from Sammamish for them. We're recommending 2,500 and another 2,500 additional if we can. Other questions?
Chair, can I ask how you came up with the $2,500 allocation? How did you come up with that?
Rita, the $750 one? Is that what you're asking?
That's correct, yeah.
That's the total divided by the 6 equals.
I'm sorry, the original number, the request turned out was $750 per resident.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I believe the next one as well is there was similar overlap. I mean, they did very similar work. They had a slightly different demographics. So we saw that they both did very valuable services, and we wanted to support both of them. So you can think of it in terms of Bridget Promise and Hero House as being similar, but with a slightly different, client base. And we wanted to kind of support both of them.
Right. And if we could come up with extra money, you would give extra to both.
I mean, they obviously did very valuable work. So, and we wanted to support both.
And they asked for Hero House asked for 5,000. We're recommending 2,500 with an additional 2,500 if possible. And this is sort of supported employment visits. They had 7 individuals last year from Sammamish. They're projecting 7, and their visits are projected at 31 for the 7 or 45 for the 7. So obviously, and that's for the assessment program too. They have 5 FTEs and and they're serving ages 18 and up. And they just grew from 2 to 3 officers. That's the increase of what they're asking. And they are physically in somewhere here. Bellevue and Seattle. I don't know where the third one is. Any questions on Heroes? This is the first time we've had an application from them, right?
We had an application 2 cycles ago.
And I'm sorry again, Chair, how many clients served in Sammamish?
What's your question?
How many clients would they project, or have they served in Sammamish?
7 and 7. Yeah. And their, like I said, their employment service visits, 31 last year, 45 projected. They have 3 tiers of employment support. One is transitional for the first 6 to 9 months. The other one is supported. And the third one is time limited independent. Any other discussion? Okay, moving ahead to Crisis Connections Teen Link. Okay, this is where they have phone calls. And let's see now. It has a nighttime that the kids are getting called, the teenagers. And we gave them $5,000 2 years ago, and they're asking for $5,200. And they've had kind of a mixed bag of management issues there. So we're recommending $2,000. There were 48 residents from Sammamish last year, 49 projected. And yet here I'm looking at 30 in phone calls, which doesn't make sense.
And I think what we were thinking is we'll give them the money and see how they do. That was a sort of, I mean, they provide a valuable service when it works, but we wanted to see if they can actually, you know, meet their metrics and provide the level of service that they're claiming they do.
Can I ask why the numbers were reduced? Did they not meet their projected goal, or?
Would you like me to speak on that, Chair? Sure. Okay. It's interesting. For the last like 2 years, they have failed to meet their service units. And I think, you know, as staff, we have always reached out to them to say, look, our commission really believes in this program. We want to know how we can help you and how can you be successful, and not just for us, but for other cities as well. But we've definitely taken the lead on trying to like connect with them. And I think there's been a number of issues. I think just a lot of staffing changes, and then staff coming in and not even understanding what the program entails and what's needed. So I think it's just been ongoing. And I think, you know, so essentially now, like we're paying for, so to give you a sense, out of the last 6 quarters, we've only paid them twice because they literally have done like zero service units in Sammamish. And it's such a shame because again, it's like, okay, how can we help you? Let's work with you. I've set up, I think, 3 meetings, and it's been myself and then my peer in Bellevue because they're part of the pooled contract. And we've just, it's.
Is it a matter of marketing? Are they not getting out to the school counselors, increasing awareness with the teens? Because I know they added a texting option.
Yes, yeah. And absolutely. And I think, you know, the commission, I remember just being so impressed and just like, that's so cool. And again, like this has been ongoing. And I think I showed Commissioner Banak and Chair Bottenberg, like just the service units in the past, you know, actually even before this, it's just a program that, you know, even when we've tried to sit down and speak to like management, they don't seem to have this understanding of what they're meant to even be delivering. And so it's unfortunate because Crisis Connections, like, you know, with 211 and the crisis line, like, you know, that's just a very maybe that's just a more easier, well-known sort of entity. And I think with the Teen Link, I think it is all relationship building, and I think it is all about sort of connecting to schools and counselors. So, yeah.
You know, the challenges of having losing staff, it's really hard when it's such a relationship based model, and then they're losing staff and they gotta start all over again developing relationships. So it's a struggle, but I think it's a good program, and it's not that much money if we can support them at some small level to see if they can try again for the next year.
Yeah, I think the idea was we'll give them some money, that we know what they do. Let's see how they do with it. And, you know, if they do some great things, we increase it for next year.
I'm kind of intrigued with the youth that are able to do what they're doing on the phone. I hope that they do get better management here. Moving along. Okay. Influence the Choice Youth Services Program. Okay. They have a federal grant that ends September next year that they're needing to beef up here. Okay. Defining them as all right, defining the program. Substance-free prevention activities and opportunities that promote student mental wellness and healthy choices. Our focus is on 6th to 12th graders to prevent youth alcohol, cannabis, and prescription drug use. Influence the Choice provides youth leadership, skill building, mentorship, teamwork, advocacy, and educational activities, all proven to help students avoid substance use while promoting overall positive behavioral health. Our youth board centers and guides our work. Okay. We did not provide a grant in 2020. They're asking here for a grant of $14,584. Their accounts are kind of strange here. In 2021, their accounts are unknown. In projection for 2023, that's 229. Those would be contacts. For Sammamish actual residents in 2021, their form says 28,500, and that's the same projection for 2023. Are we believing this is the school population in those age groups? I don't know.
Madam Chair, I mean, that was one of my concerns on this one, is their metrics just seem very strange on this. So it was very hard to kind of decide, you know, how are they really impacting us? If they're saying 28,000, what is that? I mean, that's certainly more than the number of students we have in Sammamish, you know.
And their asks are out to the, they're asking in Bellevue, Issaquah, Renton, and Sammamish. And if you follow right along there, for they don't know what their resident count, the unit count is. And for that reason alone, they have 3 full-time employees, they have 10 volunteers, they have state funding only from what I can tell here. We are recommending no grant. Any comments?
So it sounds like we're most concerned about their outcomes or their measures. That is the main reason why you didn't fund. What were the, I mean, you shared what the program was, but you didn't share why you didn't fund.
I know part of it was, like I said, is just understanding their metrics didn't make sense. Is, you know, they said if just the number of individual Sammamish They had like 28,800, and we just didn't know what that really meant. So.
And unknown statistics for last year's
Yeah.
contacts, and unknown also for their 15-minute training workshop classes.
Yeah.
15-minute segments. For the training segments, they're saying unknown for 2021 and 35 for 2023.
Yeah.
It's not very many 15-minute segments.
My impression was it was a lot of good intention, but it was real hard to figure out what the actual outcome, measurable outcome that they were getting. So.
They say they have new interactive workshops, training to reverse opiate doses. They intend to return to pre-pandemic for 2023. Their focus is on 6th to 8th graders and to prevent alcoholism and prescription drugs. They have program names of Tech Teens Encouraging Community Health, Spring Forum for Youth Prevention, Youth Legislative Day, Youth Led, Vape 21 Awareness Campaign to educate peers, Park Hangout at a local park, and Narcan training for a class. Well, like I said, we did nothing 2 years ago. They have had a change of staffing. Do you know anything more about them?
Yeah, so the original executive director has moved on and he's now with the Snoqualmie Valley Network. Their current executive director is Marnie Moraldo, who is the Issaquah School Board and was also the Eastside Human Services Forum executive director a few years back. So yeah, and they also have Cassandra Sage, who's a very, I believe she's a member of staff or a very involved volunteer.
Again, this is preliminary. We're making
Chair?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I agree. It looked like their measures are not real. They don't seem very tangible, right? That says, I'm looking at the application and 85% of workshop attendees who fill out a survey report, they have confidence in their ability to make healthy choices. So, you know, it's kind of a difficult outcome to really say you have success, or really gives us something tangible to understand that but their programs, what we're funding, are actually making an impact.
Actually, I'm looking at one of their who will be served by this program. So they're welcoming an inclusive organization for all students, including LGBTQ and allies. This year, we started intentional outreach with students who speak Spanish. And they get their clients are referred through schools, PTSAs, school foundations, Friends of Youth, UC Side Service, NAMI, Eastside Fire and Rescue, local jurisdictions share announcements, social media, newsletters, Kiwanis clubs, Rotary clubs, cultural bridges in the Issaquah School District, notices to Espanol weekly video broadcast, cross-path counseling, and always forward coaching and consulting. Well, if we learn more, we can work more on that recommendation. Anything more on youth services?
I just would add that as I read through their proposed, like their description of a program, it really feels more like a leadership development program for youth than a mental health. I mean, I can see how they are related. You can say if you have strong leaders and you're working on self-esteem, that's going to help mental health. And I see there's a definite line around doing some anti-drug use and vaping. stuff, but it feels more like a youth leadership development program as I read it. I might be off if you have more information. So it may even be in the wrong category too. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, there just seems to be a lot here that's different and not very focused, I guess, is part of it. And so lack of, what I would say, lack of professionalism in their standards, and doesn't seem a focus that I'm grasping, at least.
And we need to be mindful of there may not have a full-time grant writer. Our equity here. Well, again, this is preliminary.
Yep. That's a good point though, Joyce. And it might be that they're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, you know, like their measurements and outcomes don't really fit our mental health because it's more of a leadership youth program, youth development program.
So how would that fit with our focus areas? It doesn't.
So that's what I'm saying. They're trying to get funding for a youth leadership program by fitting it into one of our focus area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's a basic need. Because I mean, it's a legislative day.
Shall we move to the other influence the choice, parent and community education? Same statistics, guys. 28,500. And potentially 229 units. Which are those? What are they? Parent education, hidden in plain sight, mental health, first aid, etc. 3 FTEs, 10 FTE volunteers. It's a new program. They want 85% of parents who will report a gain of skills by their youth. And we did not give a grant to them in 2020. They're asking for $12,740. We're recommending nothing at this point.
Yep, I think they suffered the same problem with the other one. Is very vague outcomes. Seemed to be almost they were double dipping on some of their resources. They're using similar numbers, so it just wasn't clear what the benefit would be.
Chair.
Yep.
Question for Rita. Is this the same group that when we had the 2 fentanyl deaths set up the little in plain sight?
Yes.
Yeah, it's hidden in plain sight. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gano, can you speak a little more of that? I don't recall. Was that an effective program?
Those who attended it at Inglewood Middle School were really impressed by it, is what I heard. And that was just a program at Rotary. So in 20 minutes, that's what I took away from it.
Was it 2 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you recall, Commissioner Gano, the city put on a informational community event. It was after the fentanyl deaths in Skyline, right. And Influence the Choice, or one of the, they had an exhibit that was to one side of the auditorium that just showed like a typical teenager's room that had like drug paraphernalia that ordinarily a parent might just like pass over. So, they were able to like walk parents through that exhibit. Yeah, it was like an interactive.
And the rest of the presentation that we had, were any of these groups involved in that? Because, it's 2 years ago and my memory is about as old as I am.
So it was the actual executive director then, Jerry Blackburn, who presented. He also, if you recall, talked a lot about the Healthy Youth Survey. They don't, in this application, talk to that. So not to say that they wouldn't do that, but yes, it's a different angle here, I think, with webinars, mental health first aid training, and the community dinners.
That Parent Talk webinar part is adult focused education. And reporting in April, this month, our youth board is holding an interactive presentation for parents on vaping. And I am prevention counselor for Friends of Youth and the head of security for the Ithaca School District are speaking about the efforts of vaping on the teenage brain. And webinars to parents and answers, okay, questions and answers. And another one, Action Forum for Youth, a parent's guide through the most recent results of the Healthy Youth Survey, which is 2021. Its focus is to join youth and adult community leaders to explore the challenges facing students today and create sustainable solutions.
Chair?
Yep.
This was a good program. I
Yeah.
mean, I enjoyed the program. I enjoyed the presentation. I think where the downfall with the organization, again, is getting the word out to the community,
Right.
to let them know what's available for the parents to be able to utilize. I know the word gets out sometimes in the school system, but it doesn't always get back to the parent to be able to educate the parent.
And this is the same list as the other. Schools, PTSA, school foundations, Friends of Youth, Youth Eastside Service, NAMI, Eastside Fire and Rescue, Kiwanis Rotary, Cultural Bridges, notices in Spanish, and Cross Path Counseling.
Yeah, when I looked at both of their grant requests, they kind of cross over.
Yes. I agree. And it's the same number of FTEs and volunteers. Yep. Shall we move to number 15 here at Lake Washington? Okay, this is the Buddies program at lunchtime. And we did not make a grant in 2000. They're asking for 10,000. We're not recommending a grant this time. They had 22 residents last year, 25 projected, and one-on-one sessions with their mentor, 183 last year, and a projected 223 next year. And LINKS stands for Looking into Needs of Kids. They have 1.5 FTE plus the lunch buddy volunteers. And that is not a number they gave us. But if they had, in fact, 120 actual buddies, I mean, kids at lunch, they had 120 overall within their whole program. And they're projecting 146 overall, of which Sammamish is 22 and 25. Yeah. Well, no, these are the counts of the kid at lunch. Okay, so it would be the same number, one-on-one, yeah.
I know the numbers seem kind of low for me, is that if you're going to do student mentoring and peer-to-peer, 25 would seem low, even though it's only half the students within Sammamish. So that was just my overall thought on it. You would expect significantly more impact.
Chair?
Yes.
We're looking at a request of $10,000.
Correct.
It's basically a volunteer program ran by 1.5 FTEs at $10,000.
Mm-hmm. Their total budget.
I kind of agree with your recommendation.
Their salaries and wages overall was projected to be 153,000. Benefits being about 30,000. And their other expenses being equipment, supplies, office, printing, advertising, and travel and training, for a total budget of 194,839. And what they're requesting in funds from Kirkland, Redmond, and Sammamish, Lake Washington, comes to whatever that is, $50,000 of their total budget of 194. And the other funds come from last year, fundraising, nothing projected for the next year, and a category called other, which is in-kind or other groups that raise funds that give them to the program. The additional 50,000 that they're looking for overall is for an additional staff, which would provide for substantial expansion of the program. If this funding is provided and the program can expand, we will update our service unit and resident metrics. However, those metrics included here assume that the program cannot add schools from its waiting list.
So it sounds like the budget is for their whole staff, not this particular, only for Lynx.
I think
right?
It's just for this one program, the Lynx program. They have 1.5 FT right now, and they want another half, or whatever the next 50,000 does. Because last year their salaries and wages was 103, and they're projecting 153. So that's additional 50 to get more staff.
And you think the 153 is 1.5 FTEs just for this program, the Lynx program? You don't think it's...
At this moment, yes. They're hoping to have that other position.
Is that right? Do you think that's right? Because the
me
Lake
just-
Washington Schools Foundation, I don't think they have that much staff.
No, they don't. Just very quickly to add to that, to the Lynx program, we did fund them in 2019, 2020, and they had a very, very hard time. They were only in one elementary school. I think it was Margaret Mead Elementary School, and they just had a really hard time trying to find mentors. They did a lot of campaigning within the city. We promoted it very heavily. And they just were not able to get the number of mentors to, like, dedicate, once a month, a lunch. So yeah, but I will quickly look and see about the employee situation. But yes, the foundation, I believe, only has an executive director and maybe like one or two. Like it's very small. Yeah,
And I think Lynx is their main in-house program, but they their staffing, if I recall, I used to go to some of their meetings. So I might be mistaken, this is a while ago, but they have a small staff. So they have the ED that's probably full-time now and maybe like the other half-time staff. And Lynx is their main program, but they raise a lot of money to fund lots of things in the school district. They give grants, mini grants to teachers and stuff. And so the staff, the 1.5 staff is doing they're doing a lot of fundraising for those for their funding programs, their grant programs. I don't think all of the staff is just for Lynx. I think it's for the foundation, and the ED is doing more than just the Lynx program. They usually have a volunteer or program manager or somebody who works part-time on the Lynx, if I recall correctly.
When you compare it to the Issaquah School District did not submit something that's similar, because they have a mentoring program through their schools too, and they're always calling for more volunteers and a big waiting list.
Yeah.
So getting the buddy is the real buddy mentor there, visitor, whatever you call them.
Chair,
Yes.
when my son was going to school here in Sammamish, he was attending Eastlake, and the students in Eastlake actually got time to go down to the elementary schools and have lunch with a little buddy as a mentoring program.
From a student to another student.
So is it still going on?
Not that I've heard of.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great program. I used to get sent to kindergarten to sit with kids. That's okay. Now we're into kindering and kindering. Child care preschool consultation. Okay, background. We made no grant in 2020. They're asking for 7134. We're not making any recommendation on that. They have 9 Sammamish residents last year, and they're projecting 5. And this is one of the child care and preschool consultation, early childhood development. These are hours on call and as needed. Birth to 6 years old, 2.3 FTE. And emerging issues, responding to stressors, early ID of developmental disabilities, diverse abilities and behavior challenges, and early childhood development. And they serve child care providers, and the children are birth to 6 years old. And I thought the measurement was kind of intriguing. The on-call and as-needed support provided by Kindering's consultants is for Sammamish actual 100 last year, projecting 50 next year. The service units are based on historical data for child-specific services and providers who attend trainings. Because of the intensity of needs during the pandemic, average hours per child have increased from 10 to 12 to 18, and the number of providers attending trainings varies by city. These combined factors result in variability in service hours per resident. Kind of interesting, if we have 100 last year and 50 next year, comparing to Redmond, they had 149 last year, projecting 149 next year. The biggest number is Kirkland. And that's their only measurement. And they travel to their clients. Anything more on this one?
It looks like, so it's just, is there any specific mental health piece, or is it just overall support for their early childhood program?
They talked their emerging issues being responding to stressors. So I guess that's mental health. Overview of their program. They promote the health, safety, and development of children in childcare and preschool settings and strengthen the capacity of their parents, caregivers, and early learning professionals. Consultants provide on-site observation, coaching, and training using a healing-centered, trauma-informed approach. Topics include child development, supporting children with diverse abilities, managing challenging behaviors, and the increased needs of children raised during the pandemic.
Chair,
Yes.
it seems like when we looked at the Friends of Youth Healthy Start home visitation program, it covered all of these needs plus more.
So a duplication here.
For the same age group.
Which probably leads to the fact that we're not making a recommendation for funding.
Just the overall impact, the number of people being helped is, is fairly low. So I think that was one of the key issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for high quality childcare in general. Like, I think it's really, really important service that we need to have for all of our families, and nonprofit, hopefully they're providing it at a more affordable cost since they're getting funding through hopefully they're subsidizing the parent costs with funding from state and government, et cetera. But I'm not sure what all of these kinds of screenings every early childhood program should be doing. So I don't really understand I don't know what stands out in terms of mental health, if it's a mental health proposal. So that's just one thing I would suggest. I mean, again, I'm supportive of high quality childcare. But I'm just not really sure if it fits within this area.
They're
I
not
agree with
providing
Jody.
childcare, are they? They're just referring out.
Consultants.
Jody, I was going to say, I agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, Commissioner Nishioka, I agree. It feels more like childhood development than mental health.
Yeah.
Which is important.
Right. All right, we're moving on.
And the next one, Parenting Plus. Okay. We made no grant in 2020. They're asking for 2,600, 2,653. We're making no recommendation. Their accounts. Okay. Resident. 9 and 21, 5 and 23. Their unit measurement here is 60-minute technical assistant on call and as needed support provided by Kindering's CCPC consultants, wherever they are. And in 2021, they had 100 units, 100 times 60 minutes. And in 2023, they're projecting 50.
I think this was another one of those low return programs. Just, good intentions, some good ideas, just low return, and seemed to be a duplication of work being done by other groups.
And of the resident count that they have in their grant, they had 150 overall in 2021, of which we were 6. And the 2023 projection is 150.
Also very parenting centric versus mental health centric. I mean, it's a 10-week parent education group course.
Yeah.
They're supporting relationships with parenting skills, a free 10-week, 20-hour group, and available one-on-one consulting. Interesting, the ages of the parents here, 60% of between the ages of 35 and 54, 27% between 25 and 34. 77% of their parents are female. 52% of the parents are people of color.
Yeah, again, I agree with Julie, and kind of the same thing as the previous one. If it was focused on parenting class for families that were struggling with mental health, children with mental health issues, it would feel more relevant for this batch of for this category. But it's a general parenting class, which, they should be screening for stress and those sorts of things as every family goes through it, but it doesn't feel like it's necessarily focused on mental health.
They have 0.5 FTE, and their projected full budget for this program is $66,000, of which $54,000 comes from fundraising and $41,000. Well, okay, let's stay with the right column, Joyce. The 2023, their budget is $66,000, and the revenues from Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, and Sammamish would be $41,500. Fundraising of an additional $24,000 for a total budget of the $66,331.
I think that's reasonable for a 0.5 person, but.
Chair, time to extend the meeting. It's
Do we want to
8:29.
extend, or do we want to go home? We still have more things on the agenda. Not calendar. And staff report.
Chair, I make a motion. Staff, how long are you going to take?
As quick as you need me to be.
I would like to extend the meeting another 10 minutes.
Sounds good. Is there a second?
I second it.
Is there discussion? There being no discussion, we extend this meeting for 10 more minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Sounds like everybody. Okay. Do we need to do any wrap up on the numbers, or are you going to keep with the numbers that you have there? You were okay
Yeah, I
for
mean,
what we're preliminarily recommending. Okay. Staff report.
okay, good evening, commissioners and chair. I'll make it brief. Imagine Housing reached out to us a few months back. It's been a while since we've all met as a commission. And as you might recall, they have the affordable housing complex, Highland Gardens in Klahani. They found that they had a lot of residents that were in rent arrears, and with the King County EPRAP program ending in February, they had 21 households who were in arrears amounting to $46,000 in back rent. So they requested they requested a $1 one-time dollar amount from the city to help these households with these rental delinquencies, and just basically position residents in the best way to move forward with like normalized rent payments. So they reached out to city staff, and we reached out to council. And on April the 5th, City Council approved to provide $60,000 in rental assistance to residents of Highland Gardens. They have actually submitted the total amount of $34,000 for reimbursements, and that's the final amount. So now they've brought everyone up to speed on rent, and they're going to be working with residents on getting people back to regular rent payments. They also did something very similar in Kirkland and Redmond and Bellevue, where they have properties there. What else? Okay, I mean,
So did you say that was 30-something thousand or 60,000?
It was actually originally council had approved 60,000, but the actual final reimbursement amount was 34,000. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, great. Quickly, we work with Bellevue. So Bellevue, as you know, we fund lots of different providers and lots of different programs. And the City of Bellevue does a pooled contract program where we give them an admin fee, us and all the other peer cities, and they administer reimbursement and paperwork for certain providers, thereby kind of freeing up everyone else. They've now started to look to see, is that program beneficial to both funders and providers? And so we did some research with people that are in the pooled contract program, and some people said it was great. You know, they have the one, they like the idea of having consistency amongst multiple municipalities. They only have to give paperwork to Bellevue and not in each individual city. But an organization that's come into the pool program says that they don't like it because they miss the individual relationship with funders and individual cities. So right now we're really exploring, Bellevue and all the other East Side cities as to how do we go forward, who's in the pooled contract program, and does it make sense that each city divvies up, certain contracts to so they don't have all the pooled contracts. So we're working just to try and do some research there. And then last and not least, the Progress Pride flag was raised on Wednesday, June the 1st. And our Deputy Mayor, Kaylee Clark, made a speech and raised the flag. It was very, very well attended. I would say, Chair, it was 50 plus people, I would say. She made a speech, and it was a really lovely sort of it was just a lovely event, and I was very proud to, like, you know, work here and live here, and it was just really lovely, and they had lots of youth there, and it was just a really heartfelt event and very inclusive. So oh, and the videos online, and actually, you know what, Mike, we should send it to everyone. Yeah, we should. Yeah. And Mike did some of the talking points. And also, I'm going to quickly say, Chair, you came to the volunteer appreciation lunch or wreath making event in December, but I know all of you guys did not. But guess what? I'm going to run over, and everyone, before you leave, you get one of these. What is it again? It's, what is it, Chair? It's a wine cooler. It's a seat.
A backpack.
You can open bottles with it.
For Commissioner Varness's benefit, Rita is showing the volunteer appreciation gift, which she doesn't quite know what it is.
I called it a backpack.
It is a multi-purpose camp chair.
Nice.
Your cold drinks.
I can take Commissioner Varness's because I may see her. Oh, wow.
Well, didn't you have one as well? Would you like to buy one?
I think you should get an honorary one.
Yes.
I'll grab yours, Julie.
Thank you, Jody.
If we can ever see you.
I know.
Does anyone have a commissioner's report? You have a report?
I don't have a commissioner's report.
Do you have any reports? Okay. I could just sort of give you an update on Sammamish seniors. It has met with the city manager, parks director, recreation director, and facilities director for the potential use of the chambers here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, beginning in August, and with the Beaver Lake Lodge beginning after the campership is done when school starts, so we can have some activity. We have grant applications out to a couple of sources right now, in addition to the Human Services Commission. And of course, everything is on a reimbursed method as compared to having any upfront money to be able to get started. So now we're working on potentials of being able to have monies to afford insurance. We are likely to be pulled into a fiscal sponsor relationship with Sammamish Friends. We've also been unanimously approved to join with Eastside Friends of Seniors. So we might someday have a Sammamish Senior Eastside Friends group or something. We also had a tour of Big Rock Park South, the Piggott property, the house, the barn, the garages, the pool house, the pickleball court, which is also basketball. And everybody is really kind of excited to get seniors moving. It was one of the 2 top council retreat focus areas for this year. And a new person has been hired within the Parks Department to work directly with the seniors program. So we're still all volunteer, and you get the weekly emails that come out of my laptop. And you can see how unprofessional I am with Word documents. And when we have a volunteer around who can make it pretty for a newsletter, then we get a pretty one. And this is my 3rd year of doing it, and I'm getting a little ready for a transition to somebody else to do it. But it was probably going to average what I call bits and pieces 60 hours a month this year as compared to the 50 because of all the additional meetings we have to make it real. So that's my update.
Thanks
So
for,
please be generous when you think of senior applications.
thanks
because we're
for all
talking
that you
about
do,
January.
Joyce. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Is there anything else to come before us besides the calendar? Everybody knows June 29th is my birthday, so I hope everything that's presented that night gets approved. And July 8th is basic needs. And that's
Right.
what, 32 things to have to read? 30 basic need applications?
Is that meeting on the 8th or the 13th?
It says July 8th here. Whatever the second Wednesday is. That would be 13th, wouldn't it?
13th, I think I have a board meeting.
That's July 13th.
Okay. July 13th, guys. Okay, 2 weeks after the June 29th. And is there anything else on the calendar that we? And it says July 13th in the calendar, so that's fine.
And that'll be my birthday.
That's Jody's
My
birthday.
birthday is the
Okay,
two birthdays.
So the question, Chair, I haven't looked at my list yet. Did you say there's 32 basic needs applications?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let me quickly
About
look.
30.
It is 32.
Do we need to consider breaking that up into 2 sessions versus 1?
Oh, you've had 6 weeks to play with it.
Yeah, but the presentation is going to be late.
July 13th.
Yeah, that'd be a long day.
I was thinking that same thing as we were going through, half the number tonight.
Mm-hmm. Do we have time to break it up to another meeting or no? Do we have to?
We're undoubtedly going to need August meetings too, just to try to get the numbers to the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
172 versus the what? Yeah,
The staff is,
that's
Julie,
right. It
the
was
staff
246
is,
and we got it down.
the
to-
staff is conferring.
But last 2 years ago, 142,000 for that mental wellness.
We will look at possibilities and discuss, and we will get back to you as soon as possible.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Anything else? If not,
You might find it
I gotta
easier just
extend
to
again.
have
We don't
Um,
need to extend.
the 3 of you take 10 or 11 each and work it through. Yeah, like we did 2 years ago. With Terry and 4 years ago with you. Mhm. Yeah, I did basic needs the last 3 times and that's why I didn't want to do it again.
Okay.
Basic needs is, oh, wow, what regional good things we have to support. Okay, we're over time. Motion to adjourn, somebody?
I move.
We get who said that?
Jody.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Julie. I don't think we really have to vote on it. I think we're ready to go.
Thank
It is
you.
adjourned. Look at this.
Commissioner Varnes, can I just let you know that Commissioner Nishioka is going to have your gift. Please
Thank
make
you.
sure she gets that to you. Just making sure there's transparency.
Thank you.